Okay. All right. So now there's a lot to talk about tonight, I think, and I'm going to be limited on time, so we will continue more conversation next week as we always do. But for right now, I don't know how many of you went to the conference that we just came off of in Charleston, where I'm still at. But I think it was definitely a learning experience for me. We had a lot of ups and downs. We had a lot of opposition, more opposition than I care to even talk about. And it, quite honestly, was just very humbling to be part of this, to be, to feel inspired to do this for one thing, then to put it together. So what I would like to do, if that's okay with you guys, is let's just talk about some takeaways from this single adult conference that we just came off of. Anyone want to share? I think I've unmuted everybody. If I've missed anybody, let me know. If you can, if you want to talk and you're not unmuted, just go ahead and unmute yourself. But I'd like to hear some of your takeaways from the conference.
I personally really enjoyed Brad Wilcox's talk because of the way he explained about the 12 tribes of Israel.
And what was that?
I really enjoyed Brad Wilcox's talk about the 12 tribes of Israel and the birthright.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, but can you, go into that just a little bit more? And what was it about that you felt like you enjoyed or got it out of that?
Well, I mean, he was just very, way he had people stand up there and represent people in the actual count and the actual life and so forth. You understand that, who was who and how they all fit into the 12 tribes of Israel and all that happened. I personally didn't realize that Ephraim and Manasseh were actually adopted. I mean, adopted. I always thought that we were adopted because through the Abrahamic covenant. That was news to me.
Wow. That's cool. If I've ever been taught that, I didn't remember that either, so that's awesome. That is cool. Any other takeaways? Anybody else want to share?
I think for me it was the sister that talked on the 8-second hug.
Yes.
I mean, as silly as that was, I think I really appreciated that. I think that she could have probably gone in even more detail. I think that was like a really good part one. How it talks about how we need that in our life. It's not just something that we want, it's something that we actually need. And so I really appreciated that because I am one that likes and needs a lot of affection, whether it's from family members or, my female friends and my guy friends or whatever. That sense of touch, that sense of just somebody caring enough to get inside of your personal space just is really important. And I think that hearing it from somebody that has education about it and say, yes, we really do need this, not want this, was really refreshing.
I loved it too. One of my number one love languages is physical touch. One of mine. I only have one number one. Right? I'm so tired of people. My number one love language is physical touch. And that's rare for women. But for me, I have that need. And I don't get a lot of that. And so it was very refreshing to me. Quite honestly, I looked the most forward to her talk, mainly because I knew what she was talking about. The others, I wasn't really sure on what they were talking about, but I knew her topic. So I was very curious to find out how she was going to present that, to be able to talk about our sexuality and be able to talk about a touch as a single adult. And that 8-second hug, just since that meeting, has just been so amazing to me. Sorry, I'm also going on very limited sleep, so forgive me if I'm emotional. Not that it's going to be any different than the norm, I'm sure. But I have experienced more hugs since then than I probably had in a year or more. And I want to teach my kids about that and about how important it is not to just do some quick whatever, but to, and you don't have to do that to everybody that you hug. You know, you want to do that with somebody that you would feel comfortable doing that with, right? Like, because it is getting in your personal space. And people talk about, well, I may not want to dance with someone because, you know, it's in my personal space or it feels uncomfortable or whatever. But we need to get in a personal space because we do become a little bit more vulnerable. We do get a little bit more real. And we do allow people into our lives. And a lot of times that can also start the feelings that we have of trust. I know there are, and trust is something we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. It is a topic that I feel like we need to talk about, especially after last week of forgiveness. But I think we can integrate that some into some of the things that we're doing for tonight. Okay, so if you want to be one of our panelists or talk at all, just if you would raise your hand or unmute yourself or whatever, that would be awesome. If I have added you as a panelist and you don't want to be here, let me know. Just letting you know that one. Okay, so Jennifer, I really appreciate you sharing that.
No problem.
That is something that I just feel like is really important because as single adults, we really don't, we don't generally get that need for touch that we need so much. It says, Ganelle told, is that Ganelle Lynn? She said, told us to ask married couples over for dinner. That had never occurred to me. And this is a chat comment. Says can't type to explain why. But yeah, and that is something. I mean, I've thought about it, but that's not usually something that it's generally common. I think I don't know how that would be for a man, but I know that for me, I'm generally excluded from different things, whatever, because I don't know if it's because I'm a sister or what, but it's just different. Either way. All right. Any other comments or takeaways from the conference?
Well, I'd like to mention one. Last speaker. You can check by saying President Lawson is struggling.
Wait, Dale, we can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I'm unmuted.
I don't think you're muted. No, you don't. Doesn't look like. I don't know. I don't know if you're muted or not. If you are, you definitely need to.
I'm having trouble with my speaker thing, so.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you a little bit better now, but your audio seems to be a little staticky. Okay, that'll be awesome. Can you mute yourself then too? Because I think there's some background noise on your end. Okay. Anyone else want to add a comment or of a takeaway from the conference?
I have a question.
Yeah. What's that? What's your question?
Oh, I don't know when I'm supposed to talk.
Oh, basically, this is just one where you come in and you can comment on different things that we are discussing. Just whenever you feel so inclined. Generally, I will talk about something. Like right now, I'm just asking people about their takeaways from a conference that some of us just came off of. And then we're going to talk about the topic of trust here in a little bit. And I will generally start off the discussion, and then we just kind of go from there and add our feelings or thoughts or perspectives about that. Sound good?
Okay. Yes. So I have a question for you. Are you able to mute while other people are talking?
Am I able to view it?
Mute, since it's so noisy where you are.
Oh, probably, yeah. That's a very good suggestion.
Because if you mute when other people are talking, it's easier to hear them. There you go. So my question, I really like the idea of inviting married couples over. Since all my children are grown, I don't know that I would do that though, unless I had someone else coming to my home. I've had other single women say that they've heard from married women in their circles of friends and in their wards that the women are a little bit they feel a little bit threatened at times, to have their husbands getting to know the single women more. So I would think that would work well if you are living alone, if you have another single woman or more than one couple come at one time, just so that I don't know, that would seem like a good idea if you're just a single woman living alone and you're just inviting one couple to come over. Just an idea. That's it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There have been a lot of situations like that. That's why I made the comment that I didn't know if that was different for a man. There's a lot of women that tend to get excluded from any married couple event, activity, or whatever. So yeah, so I get that.
And I feel really blessed because I have never felt that. The wards that I've been in during the last 7 years, and I have moved around a little bit due to schooling, I have always felt very welcomed into the ward. I'm invited into people's homes, into young families, because I do the primary music, and so the children know me, and I've just felt very welcomed. But yeah, I have had men tell me that they don't get invited like the women do into people's homes. So.
All right. Thank you so much for adding that comment. Anyone else have any takeaways from the conference that you'd like to share? Anyone else? Okay. Then I want to talk for a few minutes, and this is going to be kind of a short meeting just because I am where I am, and it's limited on a lot of things. When it comes to trust, to me that's kind of a huge thing. Some of us have felt betrayed at times. I know we've talked about that in past webinars. Some of us have thought of trust as can we believe what somebody says? Or can we trust somebody who's been, or trust somebody to be loyal or faithful to us? But in relationships, if you guys will go back a couple of weeks when Brian Kellogg made a comment about the 5 stages of developing a healthy relationship. One of those was developing trust. And in developing trust, we absolutely need to do certain things that make a difference. And in developing a relationship. And one of the ways of doing that is in early on when somebody says, hey, I'm going to call you tomorrow at 5, or I'm going to call you tomorrow. Let's just say that. Do they call you tomorrow? If they say, hey, sure, I'll show up and help you move, whatever. I'll help you do whatever. Do they show up to do that? Or even more, like if they say, whatever that they say that they're going to do, whatever they say, whatever, do they do it? Do they show up? Can you depend on them? Can you rely on them? That is all stages of developing trust in someone. And believe it or not, as friends, whether we have friends, male or female, we have and we develop those feelings of trust. A lot of people will say, well, I have trust issues. What they're really saying is, I'm scared. They're not saying that they can't trust anybody, because they do. Because I can say that, I can tell them, hey, I'll do this on Saturday. And they trust me that I'm going to do that, right? So sometimes it's more than just a thing of trust in those instances. It is more like fear. So I want to talk about the difference between those two things. And I don't really want to get into fear too much tonight. We can talk about that another week. But only in relation to trust versus fear kind of thing. When we can say to someone, hey, I'm going to do this for you. Do you trust yourself that you're going to get it done and you're going to finish something? That is something that has been very enlightening for me, just in the different church callings I've had, especially even as a single adult rep. When there are people that will say, hey, I'm going to do this, and then they don't, then I kind of bail. I mean, they kind of bail on me, right? And then I know, okay, well, maybe something came up. And I'm really good and very patient about making sure, trying to, let's just say, be more forgiving and be more compromising of whatever they're going through. Because, life happens and things happen. And, something legitimately could have come up that they couldn't get something done. But when it happens over and over and over again, then that's different. So that is more my take on that one is, and I've experienced that in my church calling with people that I work with, or people that, it could be family issues, family things. I have certain kids that I know I can rely on more, believe it or not. For some kids, I'm like, I am not going to ask them to do that because I know what he's going to say or do, right? I have different people that I work with on my committee that I know that they will show up and that they will do the job and that they will, I just know I can trust them. I can depend on them. I can whatever, So when it comes to relationships, it's very similar. It's one of those things where when you start to go out with them or you start to meet somebody and they say, hey, I'll call you or I'll whatever, or I'll be there at 7 or whatever, and I'm not a stickler for someone being on time, but if they're going to be, say, later than 7:05, if they tell me they're going to be there at 7, I need, it would be very respectful and kind of a nice thing to do, just to give me a heads up that you're going to be later. I mean, I run late a lot, so I'm very patient with that. But communication is huge with that as well, because that can also help with trust. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to just hear what you guys have to say about this. And let's see if we can get some discussion going back and forth on this. I will turn my audio off. Not off. I'm going to mute myself for a minute. And I want you guys to just talk and share with me your thoughts on this.
Paula, I'll go first if that's okay with everybody. I've actually put a lot of thought into it. And I think it's less about trusting the person and more about trusting yourself that you can handle the disappointment that is going to come within a relationship. I think that people, we will disappoint one another. It's going to happen. But how are we going to deal with that when not if, but when that happens. And I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to figure out for myself personally is how can I handle when that trust is violated in some way. Because not every time trust is violated is it a deal breaker, but it's still disappointing.
I really like that comment, and I would like to add to it that I think what you are speaking about is more expectations that we have in relationships. And one of the things I've learned through my failed relationships is that while it's a good thing to have expectations, it's also a good thing to recognize someone's strengths and weaknesses and not expect more from them than they are currently capable or able or willing to do, because everybody's working on different things. And I think it's interesting that the proclamation on the family doesn't even use the word trust when it lists all of those qualities or characteristics that build strong homes, strong families. Trust is not one of the words used. And I was talking to my son about this, and he said, well, Mom, that's because trust is implicit. And I said, I think it has more to do with the only person who is truly trustworthy. There's only, our Father in heaven and our Savior. And so when we begin to have expectations of other people and people let us down, I think we need to check ourselves and see, is it a trust issue where they said they would do something and then they failed, they didn't follow through with it, and it might be because it's a weakness of theirs, and maybe they want the relationship with us so badly that they're willing to try, but it's just not their strength. And I think we need to, it goes back to Doctrine and Covenants 25, where the Savior, reminds Emma, at the end of that beautiful chapter or section where she's asked to write or put the hymn book together, she said, the Savior says to her, continue in meekness, beware of pride, and delight in thy husband, and the glory which shall come to him. So I think when we speak of trust in terms of expectations, or even in just what we would like to have from a relationship, I think we need to look at people very honestly, and we need to look at a person's strengths and delight in their strengths and hope that they delight in ours. And I just think this is such a huge topic, but I think it comes down more to, are we willing to accept people where they're at and be honest with who people are when we decide to enter into a relationship with them, and hope that they accept us for who we are and where we are at in our own growth. So I think that's more what trust is about for me personally when I enter into a relationship. I think it has more to do with expectation, and am I delighting in these people, and am I looking for their strengths, and do I see them honestly, and am I merciful, right? Because the last verse of that section is, this is my voice unto all. So that's what the Savior is asking all of us to do, is to delight in one another, to continue in meekness, and beware of pride. So to me, that's the answer that covers any trust issues, or expectation problems. And again, if a person keeps saying, I'm going to do this, and they don't do it, well, then we know they're telling me who they are, right? So I think that I like your comments. I like that it's not worth going into a discussion about fear, because that's a whole different topic, right? Anyway, there's my 10 cents worth.
I'll make a comment, Paula. I think it just comes down to just common courtesy, following the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And when it comes to wanting to have a relationship with someone, whether you're the guy or whether you're the girl, it's just common courtesy, in my book anyway, to, you know, if you say you're going to do something, by golly, you know, do your best to make it happen. And if you can't, you know, communicate that and communicate, you know, having a little bit of a situation here and going to try and work it out. But right now it doesn't look like it's going to, you know, it's not going to happen. That's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Roger. Is there anyone else that would share their thoughts about developing trust and you know, how it
Joel and Linda and Jennifer, and for that matter, Roger, you have your microphone dead. This sort of a webinar works a lot better if one microphone is on at a time. That's all I have to say right now.
Are you saying that all of us should mute unless we're talking?
One person should be unmuted and everybody else should mute. Otherwise, we get a lot of crosstalk.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants to share? Fred, can you hear me? Okay, a couple people have made a chat comment. It looks like Dale Kemp is dead. Our last speaker Saturday finished saying President Nelson is striving to get us organized and ready to receive Christ's return in glory. I thought that was very significant. And regarding Jill's comment earlier, there were several married sisters in my ward that have Facebook accounts, but I've chosen not to invite them to be Facebook friends because it was inappropriate. And you're correct. That probably would be. I am the same way though with married family. If I'm not friends with their wives and I'm not actually friends with them, then I don't. I mean, there's no need to. A chat from Brian Poole is, we've discussed it, but good friends of the Holy Ghost help us overcome our fears. Happened for me a lot this weekend. That's awesome. I'm glad. That's great. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to share their thoughts about trust? Trust in themselves. I love Jennifer's comments about trust in themselves. Of course, I always love Jennifer's comments because I love her perspective. She always makes me think. So yeah, it's just awesome. Hold on, let's see. I need to get back to the call.
It might have been Northwest, it might have been Arizona, it might have been anywhere in between. They would plan a 3-week trip.
Apparently, I guess he did.
I think the longest he was gone was 17 days. It was a full 3 weeks he had played with the football anymore. He said,
Okay. So did anyone feel like we're having a sacrament meeting in the Testing Celestial Room, palm trees, seagulls, etc.? During the blessing of the sacrament, a hawk soared over and scared away the noisy seagulls. Oh wow, I didn't even think about that. That's cool. All right. Does anyone else want to share thoughts?
Super well back. I'm taking lunch a couple of different times.
Thus, that every marriage is a unique bargain between two unique individuals. No one gets married with perfect information about their fiance. Every marriage is a leap of faith. Trust is an act of faith. We have to have faith to get engaged and get married, even to date one another. Amen, amen, amen. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Well, if no one else has any other thoughts to share, I'm going to go ahead and close this out for tonight. We will continue more, and we're going to talk about trust off and on throughout the year. We'll talk a little bit more about other things next week. But I just appreciate you guys being patient with me. I know I tend to travel a little bit, but it really means a lot to me that you join me on Sunday night, and I appreciate you sharing your Sunday evening with me. I am going to call it a night for tonight, but I'll see you again next week. Okay? Love you guys. Talk to you later.